of the great rabbis of yesteryear. We're on Rosh Chodesh Kislev, the first day of the new month of Kislev. Happens to be the Hilula of a really great rabbi. His name was Rabbi Ephraim Ankava Z'tl, one of the great rabbis, especially from Morocco, of his specific time. He'll become not just a rabbi, he'll become a doctor, he'll become a poet also, a philosopher, and one of the great rabbis from Algeria, especially during the 14th century and parts of the 15th century in of itself. He was one of the, let's just say, one of the great tzaddikim, one of the great righteous rabbis, Ba'al Muftim, as they say, and a rabbi that many great occurrences actually occurred in of itself. Let's explore some of the highlights of the great rabbi's life. I believe he was actually born in Spain in the English year 1354. In the city of Toldo, a place we've spoken about in various different places before. His father was, I believe, Rabbi Ephraim Ankava, who happened to be also a very great rabbi. He happened to be the author of the Torah colossal work called the Menorat HaMaor, which is a great book in of itself. I think this was printed in the year 1391, if I'm not mistaken. While he was young, he would actually learn under Torah auspices of Rabbi Nissim Gironadi, also known as a Ran. Probably one of the great rabbis, and was known as one of, let's say, the great rabbis of Algeria in his generation of itself. And I believe, come what the year 1391, very interestingly enough, 1391, unfortunately at that point in time, there was a lot of anti-Semitism, just like there's been all throughout Jewish histories, and that pogroms actually took place in Jewish communities in Spain was reported over. There was persecutions at that point in time, reported over. Many Jews were slain and burned, had their homes burned and destroyed, various different communities. And so Rabbi Ephraim fled this country like many members of the Jewish community of Spain, and was able to, had to wander around, and then would eventually arrive in the city of Marrakesh in Morocco, I believe, come what the year 1393, where he became a great rabbi over there, gave great Torah sermons in of itself. And then I think he would eventually go to a town called Hunin, where he would act as a judge over there, Bet Din, work in the Bet Din, the Jewish court in of itself. And then he would leave Hunin and he would continue his journey to another city, I believe, in Algeria called Talmassan over there. And he would be appointed as a rabbi and a dayan and have various different positions. I think he would actually hold this specific position in of itself for 40 years until the time he passed away. I think he sat in a court, the Jewish court, Rabbi Yeshua Halevi, who was also another great rabbi we've spoken about on various occasions before inside the series. I think he happened to be if I'm not mistaken, the author of the Torah colossal work called the Lichot Olam. And very interesting enough, became famous all over Algeria. Many people came to him with great halachic questions, Torah questions in of itself, and very much became very, very famous, I think, worldwide. And it's actually interesting, there's more interesting things we can point out within regards about him. He became, we could add, is that they say that according to legend, Rabbi Ankava, he escaped from the Spanish the inquisitions that were taking place in that point in time. Unfortunately, his father had been martyred at that point in time, Rabbi Yisrael ben Yosef, and his mother, unfortunately, at the stake. And he came to Tlemcen, mounted on a lion and using a serpent as a halter. And I think there's a man with the name Azulay, if I'm not mistaken, happens to be the Chida, the famous Rabbi Yosef Chaim David Azulay, one of the great Moroccan writers of all time, refers to him as a miracle worker, that Rav Ankava succeeded after all other physicians had failed. He was able to do many things which other physicians weren't able to. He was able, I believe, in curing the only daughter of a king of the Zayyanid dynasty. And he, I believe, reported over, he refused the reward of gold and silver offered to him by the king. He took care of his residents at that point in time, the fellow people of the Jewish community, that he begged only that the Jews living near might be, let's say, united in this way. He was able to save the community and form a community over there. his Rav Ankava is reported over that the main care that he actually had in himself was to establish a large synagogue. It was his priority. I believe this synagogue, which he actually established, is even still in his existence and is still bears his name in today, if I'm not mistaken. This is what's reported over. And I believe he actually quotes from the Pasukim inside the book of Jeremiah on side his in the rabbi's chair in itself. And I believe in Rabbi Ankava's grave, surrounded by those of his family. I think it's an old cemetery, which is a pilgrimage for North African Jews, and is visited and is currently closed by pilgrims from all over the Algeria in of itself. It's interesting, he had two sons, Rabbi Yisrael and Rav Yehuda. I think the latter lived in Oran, in Mostaganem. And later, I think he went to Tlemcen and he became the father-in-law of the son of Rav Solomon ben Simon Duran. Interesting enough. Rav Ankava wrote for his eldest son, Rav Yisrael, Sha'ar Kavod Hashem, Entrance to the Glory of God. This great Torah book happens to contain answers, let's say, to questions of the Nachmanides on the Moreh of Maimonides. Manuscripts, I think, of this work exist in specifically a Bodleian library in Oxford even. He wrote many different poets and many different hymns in of itself, which has to be pointed out. Many great, at that point in time, we've mentioned about on various occasions before, that poetry took a huge place and priority among many Jewish people at that point in time, especially in these North African countries in of itself. And he wrote other great Torah works, which we have to point out, including, so we mentioned the first book that we mentioned before. So let's look at the books. The Sha'ar Kavod Hashem was a great Torah work which was answers and questions. I think his son, Rabbi Yisrael Ankava, actually put about. I think it was a book based on, let's say, philosophy of Judaism, Kabbalah, and various different other important things. I think it was at the Teshuvot and answers from the Ashkaot Arambam, if I'm not mistaken. I think other great rabbis would actually use this book as, let's say, like a centerpiece within regards to teaching, within regards to an education point of view. I think, interesting enough, I think they rebutted some of the Rambam's questions or his logic, I think from the book, the She'ar Hagamat, if I'm not mistaken. And many years, I think there was unknowns where the manuscripts actually came from at that point in time. And I think the famous Kabbalist, Rabbi Ephraim Ankava Z'tl, testifies that the book and various, let's say, questions in the book were spoken by the great Kabbalists of Sfat. So this book, which Rabbi Ankava actually authored, was very much used by the great rabbis of Tzfat in its day. I think other rabbis, especially in their area, the city of Tlemcen, and author of other good books, especially Rabbi Eliyahu Azor, claimed that this book, the Sha'ar Kavod, is not only the book of Rav Ankava. Apparently, many of his letters and answers were lost over the years or were never necessarily specifically printed the whole time. They are saying that it wasn't maybe necessarily all of the works was compiled in there. He possibly had more works in of itself, but it's very interesting. I would recommend everyone to actually research about the book, learn about this great book of his famous book, which I would recommend. I think there's in the libraries and in and just everywhere there's copies of the book. The book, once again, is called the Sha'ar Kavod Hashem. Now, friends, Rosh Chodesh Kislev is great rabbi's Hilula. He passed away in the English year 1442. So we're talking about nearly 600 years ago. He was one of the great philosophers, one of the great rabbis. He lived at that time period where there was Harashpat and Harivish, and he was the author of the Sha'ar Kavod Hashem. Friends, we are a community here. Everyone, please subscribe to the channel, like the videos, share the videos. We already have covered nearly 530 great rabbis of yesteryear. And please, if you happen to be related to any of these great rabbanim, please send me an email and give me some more information and contact. It's always amazing to learn about and to educate within regards to these great rabbis. Please don't forget to light candles in his memory. I'm wishing you all well here from Israel.